Okay guys, so what I'm going to be doing is something a bit different. Well, not really have a set thing, really. I'm just doing whatever I want. But anyways, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to explain what is basically the entire history of video games. Okay? You ready? If you're not ready, then go watch a different video. It's okay if you don't like this, if you don't want to watch this video. I don't really care. Well, I do care that you watch. If you are going to watch this, thank you very much. Now, here we go. The history of video games dates back to the 1950s with simple simulators and little puzzle games and AI programs. It was a part of computer science research. At the time, video games like that, what we know as video games today, weren't used as entertainment. They were used as research. And it wasn't really gaming didn't really become popular until the 70s and 80s, when gaming started hitting the mainstream. It didn't actually go mainstream until, in my opinion, the 90s. Anyways, in the 80s and 70s, arcades, consoles, home computer games went public. And as of now, we are 8 generations in gaming. Can you believe that? 8 generations. Well, now, here we go. In the 40s and 50s, games weren't used as entertainment. Mostly research, just small puzzles and checkers and stuff like that. Then Tennis for Two came along. It was made by a name called... It was created by a physicist named William Higginbottom. It took him about 2 hours to think of the programming. Then he gave it to Bob... I don't know how it's spelled. Bob something. Bob Vorhack, I don't even know if that's right. But anyways, gave it to him, and it took him 2 days to program it, and then 2 days to get rid of all the bugs. And it was used to entertain guests at the Brookhaven National Laboratory. Higginbottom never really thought of selling the game, because again, at the time, games weren't used as were never decided to use as entertainment, just research. And eventually, Tennis for Two was dismantled and used for parts in other things, because research, not entertainment. Then there was Space War. It was used on this this newfangled thing that at the time was really, really advanced. It's not advanced now, but anyways, and it became the first widely available, computer game. The system it was on was called the PDP-1, and it was like a test program. It came, standard on it. And... Sorry. And, it was widespread in college computer labs, because, it was really expensive to make, hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'm gonna say this, I did research, I was not alive at this time. And it served as an inspiration to students who made variations on the game, and made their own games, and made entirely new designs. This basically sparked what now is game developing. And, it also sparked towards commercialization of video games. But Space War wasn't found in homes, again, because it was really expensive to make, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Even by 1971, the hardware to play games was way, way too expensive, until microcomputers. Once microcomputers came along, the Data General Nova and the DEC PDP-11 debuted in either 69 and 1970, which dropped the price of the necessary hardware to make the games low enough to make what is now known as arcade games, also known as arcade cabinets and coin-operated games. It was mostly drivers and shooters and a couple button mashing ones. Sega's Periscope, made in 1967, and Chicago Coin Speedway from 1968. They both pioneered with the use of fancy graphics and excuse me. thought I was gonna sneeze there. And electronic sounds. In basically, the arcade game industry was held mostly by companies in Chicago, because that's where all of this really started. But the problems of adding better hardware to it enticed engineers and entrepreneurs in California. Where was I? In Silicon Valley, where the first commercially sold arcade products were sold. Would be introduced, at least. Then there was a man by the name of Nolan Bushnell. He stood in both the arcade world and the computer world. Basically, when he was in high school, he worked as maintenance on the arcade cabinets. And then when he graduated, he went to work at Ampex. It's a electronics company. And while he was going to college, he was exposed to Space War. He went to college for, computer science and stuff like that. He was exposed to Space War, which prompted him to decide that he wants to make money and sell the game. But to avoid copyright, he made Computer Space, using technology from the time that would take way too long to elaborate on. So basically, I'm just going to skip that. And he made Computer Space. It's basically you fight off two UFOs while they try and shoot you down. Pretty much it's like a fighter game, kind of. I guess, I don't really know what to call it. It was released in 1971 by Nutting Associates. The game failed to sell its production run, which is like a year of production, because of blunders. It had I played this, by the way. It had way complicated controls, and the physics were a bit off. By a bit, I mean pretty off. Then basically somebody else's attempt to commercialize it, called Galaxy Game, failed to even expand beyond its starting area. But they were both revered by engineers because they were revolutionary with the parts they used. And then, but to be accepted, the games had to have been cheaper to make and simpler to play. But successful, widely sold video games started in Nashua, New Hampshire, at Sanders Associates, which is a military, I didn't look this up. I'll be right back. Yes, Sanders Associates is still in business. They're a military contractor, basically, where Ralph Baer was basically set on creating a game system, basically, that you could plug into your TV, which brought modern consoles into play. At first, what he had could only put 2 spots, which is 2 things that can be on the screen at once. Pong, which I'll talk about later, basically has 3 spots. The ball, the paddle, and the other paddle. Okay. But then, Bill Rush, I think his name is, helped to generate a 3rd spot, which brought on other things. Basically stuck in a recession, Sanders couldn't actually afford to publicly release it, so Bayer had to go to another company. After a little difficulty with I don't remember which company, but after a little I'm not even gonna say, but a little confrontation with them, not really confrontation. Anyways, after a little confrontation with them, he got in with Magnavox, which they make TVs and other electronics. It was dubbed the Magnavox Odyssey. It was the first console system, and it produced the actual first video game. Yeah. Big deal. Big flippin' deal. It even had one of those little guns. Yeah. It turned up a lot, actually. It didn't sell as well as it hoped, but they tried again. Only issue was it only worked with Magnavox televisions. Because it was a Magnavox device, it only was compatible with Magnavox TVs, which were only sold at Magnavox-approved dealerships. Um, but the electronics did start a very vibrant arcade game industry boost. Um, and then we get to the first gen. Bushnell from the arcades, and Dubney, a man by the name of Dubna, I don't really know how to pronounce it, founded a tiny company. It didn't really grow much, called Atari Incorporated. They got huge, flippin' huge. Anyways, they founded it in 1972, but before releasing Pong, which basically became an arcade masterpiece success with widespread everywhere. And so Atari put it into a home device, and sold 19,000 Pong machines. It's ridiculous. I wasn't even alive at this time, but it sounds amazing. Then mainframe computers came into play. Then there's the second generation. Three machines defined the second generation. There was the VCS, or Video Computer System. It was a cartridge-based console, which was later known as the Atari 2600. Controller looked like this little gem here. Ignore this. It's one of those ones that just plugs into the TV, and you can only play a select game. Anyways, which has Pong, but it was released in 1977 by guess who, and it had 9 games for the holiday season, which included Space Invaders. It would become the most sold console before the video game crash in 1983, which I'll go into more in a little bit. Then there was the Intellivision. It was made by Mattel in 1980. It had a processor that was 10-bit and 10-bit wide, while other systems were only 8-bit, and it featured better graphics, and it caused it to go really straight to popularity, pretty much. Then there was the ColecoVision, which was even more powerful. It was released in 1982, and it came in box with a copy of Donkey Kong. You know, really good arcade game where you jump over barrels and try and save a princess. I don't even know the characters, but I think it's Mario. I don't know. And basically, about this time frame, the arcade industry was booming, but with 3 consoles, you know what, I'll go into this more. Okay? In the late 70s, gaming computers came into play. With so many different types of home computers and gaming computers, there was so many rivalries that helped to better the game computers and the regular computers industry, and which led to early online gaming using dial-up, and it was fantastic. In 1979, Milton Bradley released the first handheld system called the Microvision. In the first year it did well, but design flaws and the video game crash in 1983, which I will go into in a little bit, caused its almost instant demise. Then in 1980, Nintendo released the Game & Watch. Basically, it wasn't really like games. From what I've read, it wasn't actually like a game system like we modernly know, but it was just a thing where the lights popped up from the background. I don't know if the Microvision was the same thing. I never played either of them. But then in 1983, the video game market went straight down almost. Basically, there was too many consoles and systems in play, but there was not enough good games. So the market kind of crashed. And then we go to the third gen. In 1985, the American console market came back with the release of the NES, which is an amazing system. The NES came with different bundles, with a bunch of different stuff, like the gun and stuff like that, and all of those were almost an instant classic, totally ruling North American Japanese console market, until the 16-bit era, the late of the 90s, which I will go into in a little bit. And other markets, however, didn't really get the Nintendo treatment, like computers and stuff like that. But there was the handheld market that came in, and I'll get to that later. Instead of the joysticks, the new consoles used a gamepad, which looked like this. Hang on. Which looked like this right here. Yes, the PlayStation's on. And in the 90s, everything changed. like, at the time, computers became stronger, graphics changed, multiplayer stuff came in like, MMOs, and the arcade era declined. And then in 1989, Nintendo released what is known as the Game Boy. Others tried to compete with it, but failed miserably. Okay? And that brings me to 4th gen. The Sega Genesis. Right away, the Sega Genesis proved its worth when it debuted in 1988. But then Nintendo was like, "Oh, snap, we can't let Sega win!" So they released the SNES, which is my second favorite console ever. Okay? But you can have your own opinions. That's cool, too. It's fine. It's fine. No, you can have your opinions. Opinions are nice. That brings us to the 5th generation. And Atari came back with a vengeance. Not really. From what I've read, it sucked. They came out with the Atari Jaguar in 1993. Because it had too many good games, and because it had too few good games, it died out. And then in 1994, the Sony PlayStation was released in Japan alone, but then eventually released in North America. In 1995, it outsold the math out of its competitors. Then, after far too many delays, the Nintendo 64 came out. In 1996, all I gotta say is, Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, Super Mario 64. Because those brought amazing things. Because the 5th gen started to bring about the idea that 3D is the only way to go, really. Now, before I get into the 6th gen, I'd like to talk about what the 2000s brought. China, ow, earring. China put a legit ban on gaming consoles, and so it led to a rise in the popularity of gaming PCs, which is what's mostly popular now. A lot of PC gamers, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Oh, mods, yeah, mods, and so 6th gen, we're getting somewhere now. Basically, everybody went sod off Sega, and Nintendo decided it would be best if Nintendo was just like, okay, try this, see what happens, and PlayStation was just like, BAM! And Microsoft said, I'm trying something, here you go. Basically, Sega produced the Dreamcast, and it went great for a while, but then Sega's reputation, pirating, and anticipation for another console. The PS2! My favorite system! Oh yeah, I love the PS2 because it's got this game, Crash Bandicoot, Wrath of Cortex, Crash Nitro Kart, some other ones like that. Those games, Spiral Enter the Dragonfly, my favorite games ever. Basically, it could play DVD. It was more DVD-based than CD-ROM or something like that. It could play DVDs. It had an increased processor, better graphics. It also played CDs. When I was little, when my parents weren't home, I would put my favorite CD in and turn up the volume on the TV and just dance. It was amazing. And then the GameCube came out a year later. It was kind of a purple cube thing with really, really tiny discs. It was for kids, basically. All the games kind of had like a cartoonish look to them, and I didn't really like it. So, but if you liked it, that's fine. The controller was weird though. Then the Xbox came out, and everybody decided that you can't like Xbox and PlayStation. You have to have one or the other. Meh. I just like to play games. That's it. I don't care about which one's which. I just want to play my games. Nintendo was still rocking the pants off the handheld world with the release of the Game Boy Advance, which later led to the Game Boy Advance SP. And then it brings us to the 7th generation, with the DS, the Nintendo DS, DS Lites, DSi's. Actually, I'd say DSi is 8th generation. Anyways, there's those. Then the PlayStation 3 came out, which is what I have, and I love it very dearly. then there was also the Xbox 360, which a lot of my other friends love dearly. That's okay. I don't know the release dates of those. The website that I was looking at couldn't find them, and I didn't really care because I already know we know what those are now. We don't have to learn about those. We know because it's present day. And then there was the 8th generation, the PlayStation 4, Wii U, Xbox One. Bam, doosh, bam, boom, boom. Wii U was okay. It doesn't have very many good games yet, but I'm hoping it gets there. Legend of Zelda Wind Waker remake. That was pretty cool, right? Right? Yeah, that was pretty cool. I guess. Nintendo's okay. Sega's not bankrupt. That's pretty cool too. But that's pretty much it. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you're having a great time, and hope that trend continues. But if not, things will get better. I promise. Peace out. I didn't hit stop recording button. There's a train. Stop it, train! Shut up! Shut your mouth! So rude.